So, Hare Krishna, everybody, welcome. And this is our Gita Gyan day 10. And we will be covering chapter 10 today. So, dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari. And here I'm showing you the picture of Sri Sri Radha Madhava from ISKCON Mayapur, our ISKCON headquarters in Sridham, Mayapur, India. And this is Gita Mahatmya. Samsara Sagaram Goram Tartum Ichchati Yo Naraha Gita Navam Samasadya Param Yati Sukhena Saha. A person who wants to cross over the ghastly ocean of material suffering can do so very easily by taking shelter of the boat of the Bhagavad Gita. So then we will continue. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we will recap a little bit about what we covered yesterday, chapter 9, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. If you remember the Sanskrit title, Raja Vidyam. So the king of knowledge. So Raja Vidyam, basically from 9.1 to 9.3, Krishna is telling why this is Raja Vidyam. Because it's not meant for those who are envious. It's meant for the devotees. The Bhagavan realization or the ultimate aspect of the supreme truth is only for the devotees once they take up the bhakti path. So then he talks about how faith is very, very important in this process. One has to have faith in the Supreme Lord. And that one he will discuss more in detail in chapter 10 also. How we can develop this faith more and more. So then he goes on to talk about how he is inconceivably powerful. His different energies and shaktis and all that. How he's like, for example, he says, I'm the source and maintainer of everything, but still I'm separate and not affected by it. So like this, dichotomies. He talks about paradoxes. How he's maintaining everything, but he is not involved inside. How he's all the living entities were existing by his mercy, but he is free to do whatever he wants. So he is not engrossed in the works of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So he has agents for all these things. So sometimes he appoints jivas to take up positions like Brahma and various Indras and all that. And sometimes he manifests himself. So like that, for the purpose of maintenance and creation and all that, he comes himself as Vishnu. Or sometimes he also transforms himself, different types of avatars. So Lord Shiva is another example of his manifest transformation. So he talks about his Achintya Shakti. And then he talks about knowing him. Who can know him? So he talks about how the muddas, or those who are grossly foolish, or who have, in previous chapter, he talked about the four types of people who cannot know. So these people, they cannot understand the Supreme Lord, or those people who are envious, or those people who have no faith. And then Krishna talks about who are the types of people who do know the Supreme Lord. So he calls them Mahatmas. So this is the actual definition of Mahatma. One who knows the supreme goal is the Supreme Lord. And then he also says the Jnanis can also know me, because by their transcendental knowledge, eventually they will come to understand that everything rests upon Vasudeva, or the Supreme Lord Krishna. So then they will take up the bhakti process. So then Krishna goes on to talk about how the Supreme Lord, how he is the goal of everything, Prayojan, he is the goal. And then he says he is Ishvara Parama Krishna, he is the supreme controller, and there's no truth beyond him. So then here he mentions how the karmis do not understand this. The karmis means those who are involved in fruitive activities. They cannot understand. They can only understand what they want. So in order to get what they want, they are willing to go and ask everybody. They can ask the devas, they can follow the prescribed rituals. So they're not interested in understanding the Supreme. And then Krishna goes on to say about how, okay, this is Raja Guhyam, the secret. Why is secret? That's why Krishna is telling, this is the most confidential knowledge. So because the envious people, the non-devotees, the muddas, the karmis, all these people cannot understand this actual position of the Supreme Lord. So that's why not everybody understands the position of Krishna. So by knowledge, and that's why Krishna is revealing here. And in chapter 10, we will see further why Krishna is revealing this to Arjuna. So then Krishna gives his promise here, how he preserves the bhaktas. He is always taking care of the bhaktas. The bhaktas are never, he carries what they lack and preserves what they have. And he says about how he is the supreme Govinda Madi Purusham, the supreme enjoyer. So then he goes on to talk about the Bhakti Marga. So we didn't cover in detail this. The Bhakti Marga means the path of Bhakti, the details of the Bhakti. We only spoke about how we should offer, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. We should offer whatever we eat and everything for the pleasure of the Lord. So the other aspects we just quickly gloss through. We will go through those in detail in level 2. So the takeaways were, where is it? Okay, Raja Vidyam Raja Guhyam, I covered that. Knowing Achintya Krishna, who is the Prayojan or the goal. Devotee is always protected. And the Bhakti Marga, example, offering food. And in this way, by chanting, by following the 9 processes, we talked about the 9 processes of Bhakti. Remember the Kirtanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam. So like that, these devotional processes will each of them lead us towards back to Krishna. So today we have chapter 10. So the title is The Opulence of the Absolute. So before that, Krishna was talking about knowledge of the Absolute, the most secret knowledge. So after knowing Krishna as that supreme personality and understanding his actual position, Krishna then reveals what the Absolute actually means. To be the Absolute, or to be the Param Bhagavan, or to mean the highest realization of God, what does that actually mean? So, because nowadays in Kali Yuga, we have a lot of people who claim that they are God. In India currently, last I counted, there are at least 250 people who claim that they are God. Just in India alone, different types of yogis and all that, they claim, I am Narayana, I am God. And then there are some even who sit, they make themselves styrofoam thrones, and then they sit on it, and then they speak like that. So Krishna is telling God is not so cheap. It's not just anybody who can be. God is not someone who's born, right? Like when Krishna was born, he was God right from the beginning. When he was 2 years old, he killed the Putana demon, the great demon, and then he killed Sakatasura, like that. And then when he was 3 years old, he killed Trinavrita demon, the whirlwind demon. And then when like that, 5 years old, 6 years old, then 7 years old, he danced on the Kaliya serpent. And 8 years old, he lifted the Govardhan hill. So Krishna, God doesn't become like this. God is born God, right? He is God. He just comes and does the leelas. So Krishna is trying to tell, what does this Bhagavan actually mean? That is chapter 10, basically all about. And it's called Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti means the opulences, basically the different realizations of how we can understand his ultimate power. So it begins with chapter 10, verse 1. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Bhuya eva mahabaho Shrinu me paranam vachaha Yatte aham priyamanaya Vakshyami hitakamyaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. So previously in chapter 9, Krishna said, because you are not envious of me. So then Krishna revealed the knowledge about the most confidential knowledge. That was in chapter 9. But now Krishna is saying, not only you are not envious, but because you are my dear friend, for your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. So therefore, this knowledge is reserved strictly for the pure devotees, known as the Kevala Bhaktas, or the pure devotees, who are not having any other desires in their heart other than simply to serve the Supreme Lord. They don't have any other personal desires. This is the ultimate level of bhakti. So Krishna is now telling to these people, they can fully understand my glory, they can fully understand uh, my position and my relationship with the jivas. So then he goes on to 10.2. He says, neither the hosts of the demigods nor the great sages know my origin. So the 330 million devatas, not all of them understand in the beginning, but throughout the ages, some of them have become great devotees also, right? And they also have understood. But in general, Krishna is saying, they don't know the greatest aspects about my greatness. They suspect, they think, they understand, but they do not know to the extent. Only the pure devotees can understand to the full extent. Neither the great sages also know my origin. They know some, but they don't know fully everything, my origin or opulences. For in every respect, I am the source of the demigods and the sages, Krishna says. So in this regard, you see, we use here the word Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. We have used Sri Bhagavan many times, Bhagavan, 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 like that. So there's a verse in the Vishnu Purana which talks about the definition of Bhagavan, what it means to be God, what it means to be the Supreme. So here is the verse. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yasasha shriyaha jnana vairagya yoschaiva sanam bhaga itingana. Vishnu Purana. So this was actually it was mentioned by Parashara Muni that's the conversation that took place, and he is the one who is giving this definition. Parashara Muni is the father of Vyasadeva. It's a great sage. So basically the word Bhagavan comes from two parts, Bhaga and Wan. Just like in Malay, we have Dharmavan, right? Bangsavan. So like that. So Dharmavan means one who gives a lot of charity, he's called Dharmavan, like that. So Bhagavan means one who possesses all the Bhaga. Bhaga means opulences, all the opulences. Now there are many types of opulences, but they can be basically broken down into 6 categories. So that's the definition given in this verse. Aishwaryas, Viryasya, Yashasha, Shriya, Jnana, Vairagya, and like that. So Bhagavan Samagrasya. Samagrasya means complete. The complete definition of Bhagavan means that he has full Aishwarya, he has full Virya, he has full Yashasa, he has full Shriya, and he has full Jnana, and he has full Vairagya. So this is the definition of someone who is called Bhagavan, not just in small quantities or in some quantities. Like in this world, people may have some of these qualities, but they don't have all the qualities. And even if they have all the qualities, they don't have them to the maximum limit. So it is said only Krishna has shown all these 6 qualities in full. So we have covered from from 10.1 to 10.2, 10.3 to 10.6, where Krishna says he's the Sarva Karana Karanam. So there he talks more about his opulences. So what are these opulences I mentioned? Bhagavan starts with Aishwarya. So Aishwarya means, Aishwarya can be defined as wealth, fortune, right? Lots of wealth, basically it means opulence. So if you read some of the definitions of when Krishna was there in Mahabharata, in Dwaraka, the descriptions of Dwaraka was very, very wonderful. And even the descriptions of Vrindavan, Brahma says, this is the verse from Brahma. Chintamani prakarashatma sukalpa vriksha laksha vilesu, forgot the verse. Chintamani prakarashatma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu shurabhira vipalayantam lakshmi sahasra satasambhrama sevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Brahma is praying to Govinda. He's saying your abode is Chintamani. It's made out of Chintamani. Your entire, all the rocks, the sand, everything is made out of jewels. This is a special jewel called Chintamani. And this jewel has the ability to grant any desire that one wants. So that's the speciality of this jewel. And it's full of it. The entire place is made out of it. Chintamani prakarashatma sukalpa vriksha. Not only Chintamani, there's also wish-fulfilling desire trees. Full of trees which will give anybody's wishes. Kalpa vriksha. And then Laksha Vriteshu Surabhi Rabi Palayantam. Full of cows. And these cows, each of them are also Surabhi cows. Surabhi cows also can give any wishes anybody wants. And then Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam. So there are millions and millions of Lakshmis who are serving the Supreme Lord in his abode in Goloka Vrindavan. This is the ultimate abode of Krishna. So like that, there are many, many beautiful descriptions in the scriptures. So therefore, Krishna has the ultimate in opulence. In fact, Lakshmi herself directly serves the Supreme Lord. He is also Virya. Virya means power or heroism. So you can see if you read many of his exploits, even when he was young, we can see Krishna when he was just 7 years old, he was dancing on the Kaliya serpent. This is a very, very powerful demon, and he was able to defeat easily. And then you can see when he is 8 years old, he lifted the entire Govardhan hill with his left hand, with his little finger. And not only that, he stood like that for 7 days and 7 nights, smiling at everybody. So all the devotees of Vrindavan were astounded, and they were fully astounded. In fact, it said they forgot to eat, they forgot to sleep, they forgot to do anything, but only stare at Krishna's beauty. So that was what they were doing for 7 days and 7 nights. So therefore, he had the greatest power, Virya. And here you can see a picture of Trivikrama. When Lord Vishnu came as the dwarf incarnation, Vamana Dev, he covers the entire universe. It's a story. There's a story there. So Bali Maharaj is supposed to give charity to Vamana Dev. So Vamana Dev says, I want 3 steps. So with 1 step, he covered the lower planetary systems, all 7 of them. And then with the other step, he covered the entire higher planetary systems. And then in the 3rd step, he covered Bali Maharaj's head. So like that, Virya, you can see how he covered the entire universe. So like that, and then Krishna is also Yashasha. Yashasha means because he shows the greatest fame. So Lord Krishna is not only famous in this world, he's famous in different lokas. Lord Brahma worships him, Lord Indra worships him. So like that, it goes on. And in different universes. And you can see how, when this is Vrindavan, I'm showing you a picture of Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh, India. So during Kartik season, it becomes fully crowded. Thousands and thousands for 1 whole month, it becomes fully crowded. So it's famous. Krishna is famous all over. And Even Deepavali and all that is celebrated because of, Lord Krishna and Lord Ramachandra. Lord Krishna killed the Narakasura demon, right? And then we celebrate Deepavali. Another reason is because Ramachandra, he returned back to Ayodhya during that night. So the people of Ayodhya, they lighted all the lamps everywhere so that Lord Ramachandra can be invited nicely. It was Amavasya at that time. So it's very famous. And you can remember yesterday's story, the Rajasuya sacrifice. In that story, we spoke about how Krishna was the foremost personality in all the people's assembly and how he was worshipped by Yudhishthira Maharaj, by the blessings of Bhishma Dev and by the blessings of Narada, Vyasa, and all the other sages. And we have Bhagavad Gita, very famous literature, right? Everybody in the world knows what Bhagavad Gita is, at least. Most of them, many of them do. And he has unrivaled beauty. So Krishna's beauty is legendary. So even when he came as Ramachandra, his beauty was so wonderful that even the sages in the Naimisaranya forest, when they saw Ramachandra, they suddenly had thoughts about how they wanted to become wives of Ramachandra. And then Ramachandra said, this incarnation, I only have one wife, Ekapatni. So you wait until I come as Krishna, and then I will satisfy all your desires. So then some of these sages, they came as gopis in the next life, as during Krishna's pastimes, so that Krishna can satisfy all their desires. So in this way, he has unrivaled beauty. So like I told you about the Govardhan hill, when he lifted the Govardhan hill to protect the people of Vrindavan from the torrential rains cast by Indra. So then all the people, they were completely enraptured. They were so amazed. So they only stared at him for 7 days and 7 nights. They didn't eat, they didn't sleep. It was a constant festival. So this is how this kind of descriptions are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You can read all about that. One day we will go in detail, Krishna willing. Because he shows the greatest intelligence, jnana. He's giving the Bhagavad Gita, right? So the Gita Upanishad, and you can see here Lord Brahma is also, he's the in one sense, the Gayatri mantra comes from Brahma. He's the one who is his consort is Mother Saraswati, but still he is giving his worship to Lord Krishna. So he has the greatest intelligence, and we saw how he was able to during the Mahabharata war, he was able to secure victory for the Pandavas even despite so many insurmountable obstacles. So he is the most intelligent, jnana. And he is also having this is not fame, it's a mistake. This is because he possesses the greatest renunciation. Vairagya means renunciation. He is able to renounce everything. So here we can see a picture of how the Rasa Leela dance is taking place. Krishna is dancing with all the gopis, and each of the gopis is thinking, oh, Krishna is only with me. So, and then they slightly become a bit proud because Krishna is only being with me. So the moment they thought like that, Krishna immediately disappeared from their view. So then they were all searching, helter-skelter, where is Krishna, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? But Krishna was able to, and these gopis are described as the highest bhaktas, the greatest amongst the bhaktas, Krishna's bhaktas. They were, and Krishna, he was able to fully show his renunciation. He was able to leave everything and be by himself without having any kind of regret. So therefore, he shows the greatest sannyas or vairagya, renunciation. So these are considered opulences. If somebody is able to renounce, why we are suffering in this world is because of our many different attachments, isn't it? We have attachments to family, different types of attachments. And when these things and people, they are no longer in our life, these attachments convert into miseries, terrible miseries for us. So Krishna is free from these kind of attachments. That's why he's called Vairagya. He has the greatest Vairagya. He was able to leave Vrindavan and go to Dwaraka and remain there. So that was great renunciation on his part. And another meaning for Vairagya is also, it shows that how he's not interested in whether or not people see him as God, or whether or not his position is actually glorified. You can see here how he became the chariot driver of Arjuna. He was not interested in how people view him. Sometimes a rich person or a very great personality, they would feel like, oh, why should I do something which will reduce my fame and all. So they won't be caught doing certain things, certain activities. So whereas Krishna, he doesn't have that kind of compunctions. So therefore he is also Vairagya. So from here we have understood about Ananya Bhakti, pure devotion. And this kind of knowledge is only for those devotees who understand this pure devotion. So, and it goes on to talk about how Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam. So we have understood how Krishna is known as Bhagavan because how he exhibits these qualities. So if somebody claims that they are God, then they should be able to also exhibit these qualities. And Krishna was able to do it. In each and every incarnation that he came, he was able to distribute this, show this kind of opulences. So that's the idea. So we can understand the definition of God. There are other definitions also later. We will talk about them in level 2. So one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. So how can we increase our faith? How can we have more faith? Like Krishna in the beginning says, right? Only one with faith can actually understand this. So how can we understand more? How can we have faith? So by hearing, it begins by Shravanam, by hearing about his wonderful qualities, by hearing about his opulences, by hearing about his different pastimes. So then slowly we can develop that faith that Krishna is actually that Supreme Personality of God. See, you can see Krishna, you don't see Krishna doing any kind of activities. Like you see different devatas, they will be doing work. But Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's Adi Purusham. So therefore, there is no work for him. He's only doing enjoying. His job is to enjoy. That's the position of the Supreme Lord. The whole creation is meant for his enjoyment, including all of us are meant for his enjoyment. And by participating in that enjoyment for Krishna, we will get our greatest ananda, bliss. So that is our actual position. Jivera Swarupa hoy, Krishnera Nitya Das. So the original dharma or position of the jiva, or the spirit soul, is to be the loving eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. And then Krishna talks about a few very important verses. Now, there are 4 verses in the entire Bhagavad Gita, which are considered the seed verses. So seed means it's like from this 4 seed, the entire Bhagavad Gita flowed. So it's understood like that. So they are called the Chatur Shloka or Chatur Shloki. One Shloka is Shloka. All the 4 together is called Chatur Shloki. So Chatur means 4. And it comes in the chapter 10. So very, very important verses to memorize if you like. And we can try to recite these verses and when we pray. So this is like one of the Vandanam, the prayers. The first one is Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate Iti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. So the translation here is Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. So what he's trying to say? So from this verse, basically Krishna is trying to tell us again about who is worthy of worship. The definition of Bhagavan, or the definition of the Supreme God, Supreme Lord. So who is worthy of worship? Krishna's, and then he talks about who are the people who do worship Krishna. What are the types of people who do worship Krishna? So then who are the caliber of which kind of people are actually the worshippers of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. Mata sarvam pravartate. Everything emanates from me. So someone who can claim this, then you can say that Bhagavan, that he is Bhagavan, and he should be able to show it. So in chapter 10, Krishna is claiming it, and Arjuna accepts, but Arjuna knows that there are people who cannot accept just simply but someone saying it. So they may want some proof. So therefore, he requests Krishna to show the proof. And that proof we will see in chapter 11, how Krishna shows by proof that he is the Supreme Lord. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So who are the ones who worship Krishna? So Krishna says, the wise who know this knowledge about my actual position, they worship me with all their hearts. They have no more any reservations, no more doubts. They completely dedicate their full mind and heart and soul and body for the worship of the Supreme Lord in devotional service or in bhakti. And then Krishna says in the next Chatur Sloka, he tells what is how do we recognize this kind of devotees? How do we understand who are such devotees? The devotees who worship the Supreme Lord with all their hearts. Who are these Ananya Bhaktas or Kevala Bhaktas? Those who are pure devotees who have dedicated their lives towards the Supreme Lord. How do we recognize them? We recognize them by their activity. What do they do? What do they like? How do they spend their time? So this is how we can understand, and this is described in the next verse. So this is the second Chatur Sloka, 10.9. Madchita madgatha prana bodhayanta parashparam kathayanchascha mam nityam tusyanti cha ramanti cha. Very beautiful verse. It's one of my favorite verses. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, Krishna says. So this is how we can recognize a devotee. The thoughts of a pure devotee always dwell in me, and then their lives are fully devoted to my service. So these are the type of pure devotees Krishna is talking about. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss simply from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Tusyanticha ramanticha. Katayantascha, by telling each other kata, by speaking Krishna kata, by talking about Krishna and his pastimes and his instructions and his devotees and his paraphernalia and his holy places and all, and his activities and his seva, and all of these, the devotees are always talking about this. Katayantascha mam. And how much do they talk about? Do they talk about for 10 minutes, half an hour a day? Always, nityam. Nityam, Kathayantascha mam nityam. Always, it always talking about and conversing about me. Tusyanticha, and by doing this, they derive great satisfaction. Tusyanticha ramanticha. They get great satisfaction and bliss simply by doing this. This is how we can recognize those devotees, those Kevala Bhaktas, the Ananya Bhaktas. And then in the next Chatur Sloka, Krishna will tell what he does for these devotees. What is his reciprocation for these devotees? So the next verse says that 10.10, the third Chatur Sloka. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatham priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Translation here is, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, what Krishna will do for them? He says, I will give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna will give us that understanding. So that's the point. That's the idea about bhakti. So in bhakti yoga, one does not have to follow the jnana path or the ashtanga yoga path and all that, where we you know, it's a very difficult path. We have to become expert in so many things, and it's not easy to do those things. So simply by doing the four devotional pillars, the 9 processes of devotional service, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, by hearing, by chanting, by remembering, by serving. So in this way, Krishna will give this understanding automatically it will develop. Automatically we will develop jnana, and automatically we will be able to control the mind, and in this way automatically we will be able to attain pure devotion to the Lord and remember him at all time. So that is the understanding of bhakti yoga. So then one may ask, how does he give this understanding so that we may come to him? So then Krishna reveals in the last Chatursloki, chapter 10.11. So this is a very special verse. I call this the Deepavali verse because it's a nice verse to give during Deepavali. So the meaning, the verse is, Tesham evanukam partam aham ajnanajam tamaha nasyami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvataha. Jnana deepena bhashvataha. So that's why I call it the Deepavali verse, the Deepa. You know, in Deepavali we light candles, we light lamps because it destroys the darkness of ignorance. So this is from this verse. Jnana deepena bhashvataha. To show them special mercy to these devotees, I dwelling in their hearts. So how does Krishna dwell in our hearts? As Paramatma, right? So when the Atma is trying to look at Paramatma, when we are finally the two birds in the tree, when the one bird is finally turning to look at the other bird, which is the Paramatma, then Krishna directly reciprocates. He says, I am in their heart. I'm not far away. So the Supreme Lord is not far away. He's within our heart. So what he does, within their hearts, I destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this is the real import of lighting lamps on Deepavali, the understanding that we have. So this jnana, so this is a direct verse where Krishna speaks about this. With the shining lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance is destroyed. And who destroys it? We don't destroy it. We rely on Krishna. Krishna will destroy it. Simply by us doing this bhakti seva, he will automatically destroy it. But it depends very much on our faith, and it depends very much on our sincerity. So this is where we cannot cheat, because the Supreme Lord is in our heart. So therefore, slowly, by following the processes of bhakti, we can purify our desires, purify our motivations, purify our mind, and then we can eventually come to that platform of utmost sincerity. So then, after hearing all this, Arjuna, Arjuna didn't speak. It's been some time since he spoke. The last that he spoke was he asked a question in chapter 8. Now chapter 8 has finished. Chapter 9 has finished. Arjuna didn't speak. Chapter 10 is also halfway now. So because all these two chapters, Krishna was talking about revealing fully about himself. And after hearing this dumbfolded, therefore he says, Arjuna uvacha, param brahma, param dhama, pavitram paramam bhavan, purusham shashvatam divyam, adi devam ajam vibhum. So he's basically saying, Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna is saying, oh Krishna, you are the ultimate, you are the adi devam, the original personality of the Supreme Lord, and you are ajam, unborn, and you are vibhum, the greatest, and you are param brahma, you are the ultimate supreme absolute truth, and you are the param dhamma, the ultimate destination or the ultimate abode, and you are pavitram paramam, the ultimate purifier, right? And then he says you are purusham, the eternal personality. Sashvata means eternal. You are the eternal personality who is transcendental, divyam. Divyam means beyond matter. So Arjuna, after hearing all this from Krishna, he directly accepts. He says that you are all these things. And then he goes on. He says, Ahustvam rishaya sarve devarishir naradas tatha ashito devalo vyasaha swayam chaiva bravisi me. He says, indeed, not only that you are saying it, I also accept whatever you're saying, Krishna. And then he goes on to say, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O Supreme Person, because nobody else can come close to understanding the absolute truth. So he calls him Purushottama, O Supreme Person. And he calls him Samo, Bhuta Bhavana, the origin of all living entities. So we all come from the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Lord of all beings. Not only he's the origin of all living entities, he is the Bhutesha. Isha means the Lord, Lord of all Bhutas, the Lord of all living beings. And you are the God of gods, Deva Deva, Lord of the universe, Jagatpate. So our Krishna glorifies, Arjuna glorifies, and he says, I forgot to mention the translation for this verse, Aham Tvam Rishaya Sarve Deva Rishi Narada. So in this verse, Arjuna is saying, not only I am saying, not only you are saying, all the great sages, Aham, Ahustvams, Rishaya, all the rishis, Sarva rishis, all the rishis, such as Narada, Ashita, Devala, Vyasa, all of them confirm this truth about you. And now you yourself are declaring it to me. So that's what Arjuna is saying to Krishna. So now we have understood from all the way to 10:15, where Arjuna accepts and reconfirms the actual position of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. This is a verse which appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then in 10:15, after that, after saying this, Arjuna, still dumbstruck with wonder, he tells to Krishna, please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. So Arjuna wants to know more detail about Krishna's opulences. You know, Bhagavan. Bhagavan means opulence, right? Bhagavan. So he wants to know more detail about these opulences. So, and then he says, "Oh Krishna, oh Supreme Mystic, Yogeshwara, how shall I constantly think of you?" Now, this is what a devotee wants to do. Somebody in the bhakti path, they want to understand how to remember Krishna all the time, isn't it? So Arjuna is directly asking this question. How shall I constantly think of you? And how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O Supreme Personality of Godhead? So then Krishna starts speaking. Before he speaks, one more verse from Arjuna. O Janardana, I am never satiated in hearing about you. Now, just now, Krishna was telling, right? Tusyanticha Ramanticha, Katayantascha Nityam. The devotees of the Lord are always speaking about the glories of the Lord, and they are always getting bliss. And here Arjuna is saying, I am never satiated. That means he's never satisfied. He wants to hear more and more about the Supreme Lord. So in line with the earlier verse which we mentioned in the Chatur Shloka. So this shows Arjuna's position as a very great devotee also. So he's Sakyam, right? Then the eighth process of devotional service. For the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. So then Krishna begins to speak about his vibhutis. Vibhutis means his opulences, his various different opulences. So then he starts with this verse 10:19. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, because my opulence is limitless. So how can you understand? So I will just give you a brief understanding on how you can understand my limitless opulences. So then he continues, he goes on. He begins with this, I am the super soul. Therefore, he directly says, I am that Paramatma, or the Atma, which is within our heart together with us. I am the super soul, O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. Sarva Bhutasaya Stitaha. So in all, Sarva means all, Bhuta means all the living entities, Asya, in their hearts, Stitaha, that means situated. So I am situated in the hearts of all the living entities as the Paramatma, to keep all of you company. I am the beginning, Adi, the middle, Madhyam, and the end, Anta, of all beings. And then like this, he goes on after that from verse 10:16, you can see here all the way to 10:42. So there are so many verses, easily about 28 verses or so, where Krishna goes on and on and on talking about his vibhutis, just so that we can remember the Lord. So his idea is by remembering each of these things which Krishna is going to say, we will be able to remember the Lord. Like even previously also in chapter 9, he began speaking a little bit about this. He was telling, how I am the taste in water, I am the light in the sun, right? So whenever we think of these things or we are experiencing these things, we should remember the Supreme Lord. So these are the ways we can remember. So like this, he goes on. So I've just summarized all these verses. I'm not going to go through them one by one because there are about 28 verses like this. And so some of them, they are more than this. I'm summarizing majority of them. So we can categorize them according to different categories. So in terms of nature, simply by looking at nature, we can remember Krishna in everything. For example, he says, among all that is bright, I am the sun. So he's trying to, at the same time, establish his ultimate position. Now, among all lights, the greatest light is the sun, isn't it? So therefore, he's saying, you can think of me that way. I am the sun. So sometimes devotees also worship the sun as Surya Narayana. And later on in chapter 11, we can also see how the sun and the moon are like the eyes of the Supreme Lord. We can see it that way to help us to remember. So amongst the stars, I am the moon. Amongst the mountains, I am the Meru mountain. Now, this is a mountain it's not on directly on earth, it's on Bhumandala. It's the geography of it, we won't discuss today. And among all immovable things, I am the Himalayas, like the entire mountain range, right? It's the largest mountain range in the world, isn't it? So amongst all immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Amongst all the water bodies, like I am the ocean. So the ocean is the largest amongst all water bodies. Among all the trees, I am the banyan tree. In Tamil, we call it Arsamaram, banyan tree. So these are not only ways for us to remember the Lord, these are also things which we should revere or which are worshipable. So not because we worship them directly, but in relation with the Lord. So like for example, in India, people go around banyan trees, right? So in relation to the Supreme Lord. So in this way, everything is in relation with the Supreme Lord. We don't worship them independently, separately. We worship them simply because they are in relation with the Supreme Lord. So amongst the rivers, I am the Ganga. Amongst the months, I am Mrigasrisha. Amongst the seasons, I am spring. And then he goes on to say, amongst animals, the category of animals, just to help us understand. Amongst all great horses, I am Uchaishrava. Now, Uchaishrava is not an ordinary horse. It came from the ocean of milk, and it belongs to Bali Maharaj. So it's a very, very special animal, horse, amongst the king of all horses. And then amongst elephants, I'm Airavata. So Lord Indra has this elephant. It also came from the ocean of milk. Airavata is a very special elephant. It said that it has four trunks, 6 tusks or something like that. And he can fly. And Lord Indra sits on Airavata when he goes for battle and all that. Amongst all the cows. Yes, Mataji.
The horses, you say that Uchaishrava. Is it a unicorn, is it?
Not unicorn. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but basically it can fly, like this Pegasus, right? Pegasus can fly. It's basically the king of all horses. So I'm not sure about the actual description, but it's described to be extremely beautiful. It can fly, yeah, maybe, possibly the idea of the unicorn and all that may have come from there, Mataji.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So then Airavata, then amongst the cows, I'm Surabhi. Among the sarpas, I'm Sarpa means the snakes, serpents. There are two types of snakes. One is called Sarpa, one is called Naga. So the exact difference, I'm not exactly sure, but basically Sarpas, the king of the Sarpas is Vasuki, and the king of the Nagas is Ananta, Anantasesh. You know, the Lord Narayana lies on Anantasesh. So like that. And then amongst all the fishes, I am the shark.
Sorry to interrupt. What is the difference between Sarpa and Naga?
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure, but from what I've read here, sarpas are like there are different species lah. I can't really tell you for sure exactly. It's a detail, but I think there are two different species of the serpent category. Just like amongst asuras also, there are certain species, like there are some rakshasas, and then there are some who are called yakshas. So the exact difference between the yaksha and the rakshasa, I'm not exactly sure. So, but there are different species of this category. Even among the devas, there are different species also. Like for example, there's the Gandharvas, and then there's the Kinraras, and then there is the like that. There are few types. So yeah, so these are some details, Mataji. Probably we can, the Srimad Bhagavatam, these details are described even more. I forgot the exact details. Okay.
Thank you.
Among the fishes, I'm the shark. Actually, the actual word here used is makara. So makara is not exactly a type of shark. It's a special kind of creature. Nowadays, scientists say it could be megalodon. Megalodon is the very huge shark, which can eat whales. So that kind of shark. Amongst the beasts, I am the cave-dwelling lion. So nowadays, this kind of lion is no longer there. Those days, even a few hundred years ago, these lions were there. They have become extinct nowadays. But these lions are very, very powerful. They live in caves, not in the savannah, like how we find it nowadays. Amongst the birds, I am the Garuda. So like that, Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, in everything also, I am the top. I am the best, I'm the greatest. And when you can see all these things, you can remember me. And then among beings, so Krishna is giving some descriptions of the various beings. Among the Munis, I am Vyasadev. Amongst the Deva Rishis, the Rishis amongst the Devas, I am Narada. And amongst the priests, I am Brihaspati. And amongst perfected beings, I'm Kapila Dev. So this one we will understand in Srimad Bhagavatam, it talks about Kapila Dev. Amongst great thinkers or philosophers, I am Sukracharya. Amongst Devas, I am the king of Devas, basically Indra. Amongst all the Rudras, I am Shiva. So there are different Rudras, and the leader of all the Rudras is Shiva. And Krishna is saying, I am that. Amongst the generals, I am Kartikeya. Amongst the judges, I am Yamaraj. He is the most just person in the world, right? So in all creation, the god of death, the god of dharma. So amongst judges, I am like Yamaraj. Amongst aquatics, those who live in the sea and the ocean, I am Varunadev, the lord of the seas. Among warriors, I am Rama, Ramachandra. Among creators, I am Brahma, because Brahma is the one who created this material creation from the topmost lokas all the way to the bottommost loka. So like that, he says. Now, I just want to mention something. Later in your quiz, there is a question which will come, this particular question. I'm sorry, but this question is not very well designed. So I just want to warn you that it's not a very proper question, but of all the devatas, I am. So it says Surya, no, here he talks about Indra, right? So it's not Surya, it's not Vayu, the answer is Indra. So the confusion might arise where you might think it's Vishnu. So the answer is Indra, not Vishnu, because first of all, Vishnu is not a deva, he's the Supreme Lord. And then according to the Bhagavad Gita verse, it refers to this Indra here. So just wanted to mention that. Oops, did I cover everything? Yeah. And then amongst, this is in general. He also talks about other things, which I have sort of summarized here. Amongst the senses, I am the mind. So it said that the mind is like the king of the senses. We have the five senses, right? Hearing, seeing, touch, and smell, and all that. And sometimes people say also the sixth sense, right? The power of the mind. So we also recognize the sixth sense is there, and that's the king of all the senses, the mind. And then amongst all poetry, I am the Gayatri Mantra, the most beautiful poetry. Amongst all sciences, I am the science of the soul, Atma Tattva, because this is the king of all sciences. Amongst all sound vibrations, I am the Om. Among all Vedas, I am the Samaveda, which is the king of the four Vedas. Among all subduers, that means the power to subdue, the greatest subduer is time, because time can destroy all people. Even the greatest conquerors in the world, the greatest kingdoms in the world, the greatest civilizations in the world are all eventually destroyed by time. So amongst all subduers, I am time. And then Krishna says, amongst all purifiers, I am the wind. Now, you know, wind purifies. There are few things which purify, like the sun will purify. Even if there's urine on the floor, the sun will purify it, right? So the wind is also purifiers. It can basically dry up everything. Among secrets, I am silence. So when there's silence, no secret can be free. So then Bhagavad Gita, this verse comes again, 10:32. Of all creations and beings, I am the beginning, middle, and end. Now, I mentioned this in the beginning. He starts off like that in the beginning, but that one he's saying amongst all living beings. So in verse 32, he will say amongst all creations, I am the beginning, middle, and end. So this is whatever Bhagavad Gita is saying. So Krishna is saying all these things to Arjuna, just to give an idea to Arjuna about his supreme position, so that there is no doubt in anybody who hears this. And then he says, goes on, 10:39. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. So another very important point, which says, so these are what Krishna is telling. Okay. So, and this is a very important verse also, which comes in the Bhagavad Gita. So like that, while he's talking about all these different things, amongst the light, I am the sun, amongst the immovable things and the Himalayas, like that. So then he also says, amongst all the yagyas or sacrifices, you can see here, yajnanam, what is he amongst all the yagyas and amongst all the sacrifices? Now we spent the entire chapters 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 talking about sacrifice, the importance of sacrifice, right? And Krishna is telling here, amongst all the sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names. Japa. Japa means like chanting in this japa. And what do we chant in japa? We chant the holy names. Yagnyo asmi. I am the chanting of the holy names. So this is the important point also for us to understand about the glories of the chanting of the holy name. So in this way, he completes chapter 10. And Arjuna hearing this, he is of course already convinced. So Krishna tells all these things. Arjuna is asking this for the bhaktas or for the devotees to understand. Now the devotees will fully accept whatever that has come in chapter 10. But Arjuna will understand that there will be some people who, after hearing this still, they may not be convinced. So therefore, he wants Krishna to further do something which will convince everybody. So, but the devotees are not so interested in what Krishna is going to do after this. So, but they still, for the benefit of the world, Arjuna will ask Krishna to do something. So that is what we will discuss in chapter 11. Krishna will show his Virat Rupa. So the material form of the universe, he will show that in the chapter 11. So we will discuss that tomorrow. So that we are coming to an end for chapter 10. So in this way, chapter 10, verses 16 to 42 is all dedicated to speaking about his vibhutis. So Basically, the purpose is to know Krishna and to remember Krishna. It's for the bhaktas. And then Krishna goes on to say, my vibhutis are limitless, Krishna, Arjuna. So I can only tell you the prominent things. And then he says, gives a summary towards the end. What's the summary? This is the summary which comes. Know that all opulent, how we can understand about the supreme position? Simply understand that all opulent, beautiful, anything which you see in your life, which is opulent or beautiful or great or wonderful or great, whatever, glorious creations, they all spring but from a spark of my splendor. They actually basically come from a spark of my splendor only. So Krishna is telling them. So this is the verse. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimat urjitam evava tat tat evava gachatvam mam tejo amsa sambhavan. Simply a spark, an amsa of my splendor. Tejo. Splendor means tejo, tejas. So the summary or the takeaway for today's Bhagavad Gita is Ishvara Parama Krishna Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is the supreme controller and he is the cause of all causes. So that's the translation of that. And then we can also understand about Ananya Bhakti, pure devotion. We heard the 4 Chatur Sloki, right? How we can understand what do the pure devotees do, and then what Krishna does for them in return, and then how the pure devotees are always protected. And in this way, we can return back to the Supreme Lord. The pure devotees are always interested in hearing and chanting and performing devotional service for the Supreme Lord, Nityam, all the time. So that is the ultimate standard of the pure devotee. All opulent, and then we heard about the vibhutis, so that we can further understand the actual position of the Supreme Lord, and further we can try to remember the Supreme Lord when we see these wonderful things. So all opulent, beautiful and glorious creations spring but from a spark of Krishna's splendor. So this is our understanding for today of chapter 10. So before we end, I just want to go through this verse, which is glorifying the chanting of the holy name. So this verse, I forgot to put the translation. But anyway, what it means here is Namna Makari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. So here this verse says, this is spoken by Lord Chaitanya, Sikshashtakam verse 2. It says there are so many millions of names, Namna Makari, many names that you have, Krishna, like Krishna, Madhava, Govinda, Vasudeva, Vinoda, Achyuta, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, like that. There are so many names. Namna Makari Bahuda, Nija Sharva Shaktis. And what you have done, you have put all your energies, these entire vibhutis that we have talked about, all these energies and vibhutis, and in fact, you have put yourself, Sarva Shaktis, you have in fact yourself incarnated in these holy names. And he says, and continues, Tatrarpita Niyamita Smarane Nakalaha, just for us to remember the Supreme Lord. And there are no even hard and fast rules for us to chant these holy names of yours. You are so merciful in that way, right? So basically saying, you have given all the mercy in these holy names. You have incarnated in these holy names. In Kali Yuga, you have come in these holy names itself. And there are no hard and fast rules for us to chant these holy names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. Etadrishi Tava Kripa, by your kindness, Kripa, your mercy, we can easily approach you, Bhagavan. And then he goes on to say, unfortunately, I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for these holy names of yours. So, but actually, this is just in representation of us. So this is our state. We have to learn to develop that attraction for that holy name. And that can come by chanting this holy name itself, by starting this process of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and by following the bhakti processes, we can come to this platform so that we also can be like the pure devotees mentioned in the Chatur Sloka. Tusyanticha Ramanticha. Katayantascha Nityam Tusyanticha Ramanticha. Always glorifying and hearing and enlightening each other about Krishna, and doing this happily and blissfully and full of pleasure. Always. So with that, we'd like to request everyone to say this verse and then chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 3 times. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much, everybody. So we'd like to open for any questions if there are.
Prabhu, I got a question here. Could you please kindly explain to me again on the takeaway message on Ishwara Parama Krishna and also Ananya Bhakti?
Okay. So Ishwara Parama Krishna, the translation is basically Ishwara means the controller. Parama means supreme. So Krishna, and who's that supreme controller? That is Krishna. So for us to understand Krishna's actual position, so there were many verses that we covered in this chapter 10, which basically establishes this point of Krishna being the supreme controller. He says, right, I am the source of all living entities and things like that. So from here we can understand. Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. So ultimate cause. He may not be the direct cause. Like, for example, Brahma is the one who created the entire, so therefore he's called the secondary creator. But the original knowledge which gave Brahma to create was given by Vishnu in the form of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And in this way, Brahma heard this prayers, heard this, the Gayatri mantra first. He heard it. Where did it come from? It came from basically the flute playing of Krishna. So like that, Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is the original seed, the original source of everything. So he directly mentions that here also. So there were many verses in chapter 10 which also mentioned this point about how he says, right, I am the beginning, I am the middle, I am the end, I am the source of all living entities, like that he says. So basically that's what it covers here. Ananya Bhakti means pure. Ananya means pure, without any kind of mixture. You know, there are different types of, in the beginning, there are 4 types of people, right, who come to Krishna. Krishna mentioned, I think 2 chapters ago, those who are in misery, those who are looking after, those who are wanting to satisfy their desires, those who are inquisitive, and those who are in knowledge. So in the beginning, we may have different desires, like how, you know, Dhruva Maharaj, the small boy, 5-year-old boy, how he wanted to have a greater kingdom than his father. And in this way, he prayed to Lord Vishnu. But by the process of praying to Lord Vishnu, he became purified. And even when Lord Vishnu granted his desire, Dhruva Maharaj, he was saying, I didn't know. I mistakenly had asked for these things, which are just like broken glasses, when the jewel Chintamani is right in front of me. So Ananya Bhakti means pure devotion, devoid of, free from any other kind of desire. The desire is only to serve the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, only for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So everything one does is simply dedicated for his pleasure. So it is something very high, but it's at the same time something which we can begin to cultivate even now. It's just a matter of getting our sincerity correct. You know, there should be no We may have our desires, and everything, but it's important for us to recognize that these are material desires, and we should pray to the Lord. Please, Supreme Lord, please Krishna, please purify me, please purify my desires so that I can eventually have only this kind of desires for your benediction and for your pleasure alone, so that I can be your servant alone. So we can pray like that and acknowledge that we have these other things. And eventually, by the process of bhakti, we will come to this stage of ananya bhakti, pure devotion. So that's the meaning, Mataji. Is that clear?
Very clear, Prabhu.
Thank
Prabhu,
you.
Thank you very much.
two questions.
Yes.
Two questions. That we are only talking about Bhagavad Gita. Why are we named as Bhagavad Gita? Shouldn't it be Bhagwan Gita?
Okay. So this is how Sanskrit works.
Second question, I'll tell you.
Okay.
If Krishna is the creator of everything, why are we in this pandemic now? He would have created.
Okay. So first question is Bhagavad. So the word Bhagavad refers to Bhagavan. So Sanskrit works like that. Actually, there are three meanings to Bhagavad. When we say Bhagavad, Bhagavad means the Supreme Lord, and Bhagavad also means the devotees of the Supreme Lord, and Bhagavad also means the book Bhagavad. So there are three. So therefore, it comes from the word Bhagavan, the root. But then in the way Sanskrit works, the grammar of the Sanskrit, Sanskrit is a very versatile language. The same root word, you can poetically, that's why you can make poetry out of Sanskrit very beautifully. So that's the meaning of Bhagavan. So therefore, Bhagavad refers to Krishna. Bhagavad also refers to devotees of Krishna. So the understanding is like how Krishna says, right, in chapter 6, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatinantaratmanaha. So sarva yuktanam. So the devotees and myself are always closely related. Krishna says, I am in him and he is in me, and we are never separated. So therefore, the Bhagavad, it refers to Krishna, it also refers to the devotees. They are never separated. They always come together. So that's the meaning of that. Okay. And then as for why COVID is going on, why miseries are going on, so that's a very interesting topic. This is where karma comes. So actually, Krishna, he doesn't interfere in our suffering. It's not that he is creating the suffering. These sufferings are coming because of our own reactions, of our own, remember Adi Deva, Adi Atmika, Adi Bhautika. So why is Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika and Adi Devika coming? These are sufferings, these are miseries. Why are miseries there? They are coming because of our own karma, because of our different activities which we have done. So we talked about it very briefly in level 1, but karma is actually a 2 hours, something which we need to spend 2 hours to talk about. So in level 2, I will have 2 sessions on karma. So we will intimately understand how karma works, and we will ultimately understand how everything is due to our own problems, because we make the wrong mistakes. It's just like the child, right? When the child is born, the parents are so nice to the child. They make the promise, I will take care of you, I will ensure that your life is wonderful, everything is great. But the child sometimes never listens to us, and because the child doesn't listen to us, then the child goes through some suffering. And then after that, the child will scold the father, I'm suffering all because of you. And then the father will say, hey, I told you not to do this. And then the child will say, now you please save me. I'm out, I'm in this trouble, you come and save me. So sometimes the father will not come and save the child, because the father wants the child to learn. If he saves him all the time, or the mother saves the child all the time, the child will not learn. So he has to learn, and he has to understand, and he has to take responsibilities for his own action. So this is how the world works. And that's why we are in this material world. This material world is like a prison. It's not meant for happiness. It is full of the 4 Janma, Mrityur, Jara, Vyadi. It's part of this world. And it is also the place of the 3 miseries, right? Adi Atmika, Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika. So this will be very nicely explained when we speak about karma, we can totally understand why so many bad things happen to good people and why good things happen to bad people. So all this we can fully understand, I can tell you.
Okay, but you see, the irony is we see a lot of children suffering from COVID.
Yes, yes.
Millions of people.
Correct.
What karma could the child do?
Yeah, that's the question which other religion cannot answer. So, they will say, if, for example, Christianity will say, this is God's test. And then Islam will also, or Christianity will also say, this is, we are suffering due to our sin. But then, as you rightly pointed out, Dato, what did the child do? What kind of sin why is a child born with AIDS? Why is a child born deformed? Why is a child born to different poor families and things like that? So the short answer to this is karma, because remember, we are souls and we are taking birth after birth after birth after birth. This is not our only birth. We have taken many, many, many births in our past. And the activities and the karma which is coming from the past is hitting us now in this life. So that is the understanding. That is how we are taking birth in these certain situations and things like that.
I'm asking you because a patient asked me, why are we suffering? Why you say you Bhagavad Gita, you go and learn, attend Bhagavad Gita classes? He said, why has God created this and why are we suffering when we know that we have not done anything wrong at the moment?
So we cannot say that, right? When we do one thing also, we don't know how one activity is causing harm to so many other things. Like, for example, we walk. As we are walking, we are stepping on so many different living creatures. Ants are dying. So, and it may be small creatures. Maybe the karma is not so much. So like that, even when we do some activity, for example, somebody is doing one particular activity here, but you don't know how the repercussion is going to come, how it may affect, like somebody cuts down trees in order to build a hydroelectric dam to benefit the entire, so many thousands of people are benefited. Hospitals have electricity because of this dam. But the repercussions are very far. We don't know how it reacts, how one person's life is destroyed due to, there's a saying in English, right? One man's gain is another man's pain or another man's loss. So it's always like that. Somewhere we are gaining, somewhere we are losing. So it's very complicated. There are many, many routes. There are many, many things which are going about. So we will discuss a little bit more about this in chapters 13 and 14. But if for this understanding, a proper discussion needs to be there to fully understand how karma works. Karma will work in different levels. It's not that we slap somebody, we will immediately, sometimes we slap someone, we immediately will get a slap back in return. So this is called instantaneous karma. But some karma will take time to fructify. It may fructify something we do now, we will only see it in action after 20 years. Some will see it only at 70 years. Sometimes we will only see it, in our next life. So some we will only see it after 10 lifetimes. So like that, certain karmas have different types of time span. So we will discuss this in detail, Prabhuji.
Anyway, I'll have to answer that type like that into my.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Any other questions?
Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Sarangi Mataji.
Prabhu, chapter 9, we said about Raja Vidya. Chapter 10 is what yoga is it?
Chapter 10 is Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti Yoga.
Vibhuti Yoga. That means Vibhuti is more of the opulences of Krishna. It speaks about opulences of Krishna.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Prabhu, that you said the opulences of Krishna. Krishna speaks about all the opulences about the material world. But then he's the one who created the good and the bad also, right?
No, he didn't create anything bad. There's no bad. Why? In the material world, there is bad. Why there is bad? Because of the activities that we have done. This material world is full of different living entities. So simply for the sake of one's desire, people are doing activities. So when we do one activity, it has repercussions, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And these repercussions are, as I mentioned to Prabhu just now, it is very complex. It will come and hit us in different ways. We do not know. For example, just to feed the poor, we may cut a cow. But what's the sin of the cow? So how many things are dying in just because we want to satisfy certain things which we want. So in this way, karma is the universal justice system. It is the justice system which will tell us there is justice for everything. We cannot really escape from it. So that's why there is 3 different types. There's karma. We will talk about this in the karma part in detail. So for now, if you can just bear with me, understand that the Lord is not responsible for any of the miseries that's happening in this world. In fact, why these things are happening is simply because people are having a lack of God consciousness. Nobody is turning to God. If everybody developed God consciousness according to the teachings of the Gita, then there will not be these kind of problems in this world. It is because people have ignored. They want to do whatever they want simply to satisfy their senses and their desires in any kind of activities. Whether it's sinful or not, they don't care. Who it harms, they don't care. And sometimes we do this in ignorance. We don't know that this is going to cause something. So in this way, we get trapped in the cycle of karma.
Okay, even during Krishna time, during that, during this war, there was also bad people like the opposite Kauravas. They were also doing bad thing. I mean, during the Krishna time of existence, also were bad people there, right?
Yes.
So why couldn't Krishna immediately rectify all these people's heart and mind and thoughts and action?
Because there's a very good reasons to that, Mataji. There is Krishna, he does everything else. Now I ask you this, it's like this. Krishna's goal of, okay, why do we have children? We have children because we want to have a loving relationship with them, right? That's our main purpose, right? We want to have a nice relationship with children. Otherwise, why do we bother to have children? We don't. So Krishna, the Jivas and the Krishna's relationship is like that, parent and child. So Krishna wants to have a loving relationship with the child, with the Jiva. So what he does everything, but he does not interfere in the desire or the free will of the Jiva. That means he will not interfere. He will not force. Krishna will never force the Jiva to do something which the Jiva doesn't want. So that's the reason Krishna doesn't force the person to change his heart. We have to change our heart. With knowledge, with understanding, with everything, we make the change, then Krishna will be ready to facilitate. So even during that time also, there are different people. They were all bad, doing bad things and everything. So what Krishna did? So he rectified, he said, right, there's this verse in chapter 4, where he says that he will come and then he comes for the purpose of re-establishing Dharma. He kills all the miscreants, right? So that's why Mahabharata took place. When Mahabharata took place, all these demonic kings were all killed by the plan of Krishna. And then again, the earth was again liberated. So Bhuma Devi felt relief after all these kings were killed. So just to save Bhuma Devi, Krishna came in that sense. So he doesn't force. So if he gives knowledge, even the Bhagavad Gita, you'll be amazed. After giving all this knowledge, Krishna will speak up to chapter 18. And at the end of chapter 18, you know what he'll say to Arjuna? It's a very famous verse. He will tell Arjuna, now that you have heard all these things, now you please do what you like. This is what he'll tell to Arjuna. So he doesn't interfere. So that's the main point. Why he doesn't interfere? Because if he force, he can force us to become his. It's like giving love potion to somebody to make you love you. So Krishna doesn't do that. Krishna doesn't give love potion to make us love him. So Krishna gives knowledge. Krishna gives jnana so that we can come to understand that he is the actual original position for us to love. Is that clear, Mataji?
Okay, Prabhu. And then that means we will be doing the level 2 with you also together?
Yes. Level 2 will be weekly. We won't do every day. Level 2 will be once a week class. And then we will go into these topics in detail.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions?
We have a lot of
Yes, Hemalata Mataji.
Vanakkam Prabhu, I'm Uma. Prabhu, you see, each and every one of us telling, oh, why this happening? It's now Kali Yuga. People are so materialistic and whatever negative, we always look into, it's others. Okay. So, are we part of that contribution? Because when we ask or whatever statement given, each and every individual look on the other side. Always they in others. But I think maybe each and every one of us unknowingly contributing to that. As we our first beginning lessons, we have who am I? That there was one part of our teaching, who am I? That maybe we are also part of it, that we don't realize that we are doing it.
Yes, you're right, Mataji. Yeah, you're correct. Yes. That's what it is. That's why, as I said, we don't understand the repercussions of the actions that we do. We do not know that we have unknowingly have also caused a lot of problems. But at the same time, we are experiencing our happiness and distress. It says in the law of karma that when we take birth in this world, the happiness that we will experience in this life and the miseries that we will experience in this life is already fixed at the time of conception. At the time when the zygote is formed in the womb of the mother, that time itself is already fixed. How much of happiness we will go through, how much of misery we will go through in this life. So how do we fix that? We fix that based on the previous life's karma. So whatever good activities, whatever bad activities, like punya, if somebody has done a lot of punya karma, then they will be born in a better situation, in a better facility. What to speak of this material world? We would be even in a Swarga Loka and all that, we would be there. So that is the idea. We took birth in this earth planet. So that means we have a certain set of karmas, both good and bad, which we have to experience in this life. And when we have to be patiently experience it, Krishna says, right, one should tolerate and one should understand why we are going through this. So that's the intelligent thing. A human being will understand, why am I suffering? Why am I going through this? Can I stop this suffering? Can I stop it? So the moment he thinks like that, that's when knowledge will come into our that's when we start to understand Bhagavad Gita. And that's when we can realize how we can stop it permanently. There is a way we can stop it. Krishna has given us the way, but we don't want to. We have our desires. As long as we have our desires, we want to desire so many things. We want to have this, we want to have that, we want to have whatever things. As long as we have these desires, we will be subjected to these things, karma and all that. We will have to go through and we will have to enter. So that's why Bhagavad Gita is all about purifying our desires. We cannot get rid of our desires. It's not possible. The jnana path is to artificially suppress our desires by controlling the mind. It's very difficult. But the bhakti path is not suppression, it's to purify our desires so that we know what are the real desires. For example, a simple thing is we have desire to eat. So why should we eat meat? Why should we kill animals just for the sake of our tongue? Do we understand how much of pain and trauma the animal is going through? Do we understand how much of pain the family of that animal? They also can feel pain. They also can cry. They also feel the separation of their family members. So these things are all documented fact in science. But we do this. So when we do that, right? So it's not going to help us in our. So what we do in spiritual life, we cannot stop eating. We cannot say I don't want to eat anything. Even if we eat plants, we are killing the plant, right? The plant also, the sin may not be so much. There are different levels of sin. When we kill animals, the highest animal to kill is the cow. The sin of killing the cow is the highest. So like that, there are different levels of sin. But even plants also, when we kill the plants, the life of that living entity is gone, snuffed out. So in one sense, there is some small karma involved also, even in that. But how can we purify our desires? How can we purify our activities? So this is what yoga is all about. So for example, in Bhakti Yoga, what we do, we offer whatever that Krishna wants us to offer to him. He says, right, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. So vegetarian food stuff, right? So foodstuff which are offerable to the Lord, so many different types. And then we offer these. When we offer this to the Lord, the life of that plant or the life of that plant is perfected because it has been offered to for the pleasure of Krishna. And that's the perfection of that living being. And we have been instrumental in doing that. So, and when the food comes out as prasadam, that prasadam is free from sin. There is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. We didn't cover it this time, but it says, those people who eat food simply for their sense gratification, they eat only sin, Arjuna. He says that in Bhagavad Gita. So I thought that might be a bit too heavy in the beginning to give to people. So anyway, I didn't mention that particular verse, but that's why we do offer prasadam. We try to eat prasadam. When we offer food to Krishna, that food becomes purified. There is no more sin, karma or punya and all that. And then it becomes, on top of that, it becomes purifying. It purifies our consciousness. It makes us better, helps us to be more focused in our devotional service, and stops this cycle of karma. So like this, there are many other activities. And one of the main activities is like chanting. When we chant Hare Krishna, that destroys a lot of sin, mountains of sin in our heart, it destroys. For many lifetimes, we have been going through this many lifetimes. So all of this is destroyed slowly as per our conviction and as per our faith. So there are many stories of how this has happened in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the scriptures. Many stories are there. In level 2, we will describe many of the stories. While in level 1 also, I will try to insert here and there some stories. So we are still in chapter 10. We will talk about these things more and more in other chapters, and I will try to put in more and more stories for our understanding.
Thank you.
There are many things to understand. Actually, there are many things to learn. So many things to tell you. So just be patient and slowly ingest it, slowly take it step by step, and we can understand. There are answers to everything. Every question that you have, Krishna is given in the scriptures. Any other questions from anybody for now? Okay. So, right. So thanks for the wonderful interactive session and for all your patience. Thanks. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.